Okay. There are a few things in this world I actually hold to be sacred or fundamental, but there's two things among them that I hold to be sacred and sacrosanct, like it's the Word of God, and that is the horseshoe theory and the Streisand effect. And there is no better example in my mind of the Streisand effect than the subject of today's video, which is Goblin Slayer, a manga that I basically just want to recommend to people who are getting into manga and anime. And yeah, I thought I'd go over some stuff about it that I thought were pretty good. First off, there's a disclaimer. This is a pretty violent manga and anime we're talking about. And my memory's I'm going off of memory with this one, so I may not be all there with it. But it's been a couple weeks since I last read one. But it is violent. It is violent. People usually compare it to Berserk. If you've ever watched or read it, well, you have more information than me, so you know what I'm getting at here. This is not for the faint of heart, in my opinion. If you don't have thick skin, yes, do not watch this. Do not read it. No, 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 no. Just don't. Put it away and back away slowly. Like, pretend it's the trigger to the Death Star and it's just about to blow up all around. Like, back away nice and slow, like it's a tiger. Like, don't look away, but back up. Push your friend while slowly pushing your friend forward. All that. But to get that out of the way, I would just say, yeah, if you are not. Like, to best describe this anime for you in manga, it's kind of like a dark fantasy story. And to quote Gundam, or It's a Gundam, dark fantasy here in the West is gay. And not in the homosexual way, the stupid way. Dark fantasy in Japan is dark. It's effing dark. Like, imagine a godless world where everything is akin to Gontaro Dim. I'm paraphrasing here, but that was the example he gave. And yeah, it basically describes kind of what dark fantasy in Japan can be like. It's dark. They do not sugarcoat it. They don't hide from it. They go full into it. And I love it. I've probably been traumatized by some of it already, so I might be desensitized a little. But then again, I never watched Berserk, so I haven't seen the worst yet. But yeah, another way to describe this manga would be if you've played Doom, like the new one with the Doom Slayer. Goblin Slayer is like the Doom Slayer of a Dungeons and Dragons setting, which I love. I think Apabin once described Doom Slayer as being almost autistic in the way he does things. That's how I would describe Goblin Slayer, which I'm not going to lie, as a fellow autist, I'm kind of proud of him. Because he's basically killing a species of rapists. Spoiler alert. But, yeah, it's pretty dark, and I love it. Especially I love the way he kills the goblins. He sets them on fire, stabs them, shoots them with arrows. I mean, really, they're no different than the demons in Doom. I have no sympathy for them, and they kind of deserve to die because they kill people. Only the goblins do worse things than kill people. They take women, rape them, force them to give birth to a litter of goblins, and then the goblin children they give birth to eat their corpse, from what I hear. So, yeah, this is not a species I have much empathy for or sympathy towards. I'm kind of happy to see them go extinct, or at least in the manga. Although the Goblin Slayer does say it's possible there are good goblins out there, but he hasn't met any yet, so he's just being safe. Better safe than sorry, I guess. And yeah, the art is pretty good. Well, I think it's good. The story, well, I think the story's good. It's decent. Well, more than decent. Like, for me, the tier is bad, decent. Well, no. Actually, no, it's bad, very bad, bad, decent, average, decent, good, and great. Goblin Slayer is like, it's good. It's above average, in my opinion. mainly because the goblins, you're basically seeing a character who was traumatized, sort of being rehumanized. He lost his humanity in a sense. I'm pretty sure Bufar I think it was 191 or 141. He described it as being like Goblin Slayer's Golden Age Guts. You are basically seeing him go through what Guts went through before the eclipse. And I don't know much about Berserk, but if so, yeah, that might be a good description of it. Because from what I've heard, the eclipse was not a pleasant event for Guts. It sounds like it was awful. But yeah, this is probably a favorite manga of mine. If I had to give it a rating, it would probably be a 4 out of 5. Like a 4 out of 5 Goblin Skulls. I mean, it's not my absolute favorite. That one's still tied between the Gray Man and Shield Hero. I don't even know if it would be a second or a third, but it's up. It's definitely on my favorite list. And on the list of mangas I would say you should read before you die. Another thing I'd like to say about Goblin Slayer is there's actually a funny story of how I got into it. I was actually waiting for my philosophy class, and I was perusing through Twitter, and I started hearing people complain about this thing. I looked it up and I thought, this sounds fantastic. Like, the story sounds good. I need to watch this when I get home. So, the only reason I know about this is because people on Twitter made a big stink about it. They were throwing a fit over it. So, if you don't enjoy good art or story or decent art or decent stories, there's also a spite factor. Like, if you hate the social justice goblins, you could watch and read this just to spite them. Who knows, you might actually end up liking it. I did, and the only difference was my motivation was I was just curious what they were making a big fuss about, and were making a big stink about. And that's how I got into this. And that's why I opened this video with me talking about the Streisand effect, because Goblin Slayer is my prime example of the Streisand effect. Because you see people online and people on Twitter and the media saying you should not do this or you shouldn't waste your time on something. Yeah, when people tell me that, I usually do the polar opposite. Especially if it sounds stupid what they're saying. Like, there are certain things you can tell me not to do that I won't do. Like, if you tell me not to do something that infringes on the rights of someone, I won't do that. But if you tell me not to do something that involves entertainment, I will more than likely research it and get into it. So, yeah, congratulations, social justice warriors, who, this is one of the few times I will address you. You made me into a Goblin Slayer fan. I would not know about it if not for your ineptitude. But I'll get off that soapbox. I'm sorry, that's just like my favorite story to tell. I got into a manga because someone complained online. Like, that's the ultimate recommendation, in my opinion, is if you want to know what a good manga is, and I sometimes will see these people complaining about a manga, it turns out to be a good manga. Same with Shield Hero. But again, I'll be getting off that soapbox for now. The main point of this was just to talk about some stuff about it, so I'll do that now. The main character, Goblin Slayer, and this is your spoiler warning, was when he was a kid, he saw his village get wrecked by the goblins. He saw his neighbors, their children, his friends, his older sister get murdered, violated, and just awful things happen to them, and he saw it all. Specifically what happened to his sister. Like, he could see that through a crack in the floor where he was hidden. She put him there right before it happened to her. And after this, he escaped. He was trained by this, I forget what he's called. It looks like a cross between a hobbit and a dwarf. Or that's how I would best describe it. But he's trained by this one guy, Aria, I think is what the species is called. He meets Aria, who teaches him how to fight and hunt goblins. And he dedicates himself to hunting goblins. And that's the main premise of the series for you. But if you do like the main series, I do recommend that you. What was it? What was it? Oh, yeah. If you like the main series, I recommend getting the prequel to it called Year One. I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, Year One. Just had to look on the shelf, which is a prequel that deals with Goblin Slayer's beginning years, hunting goblins and working for the guild. And if you don't like him, because for me, the protagonist is the main investment for me, so that usually gets my attention. If you have a protagonist that I can give a shit about, then you have my interest. But if that doesn't do it for you, there's also the other characters that are around him. You have Priestess, High Elf Archer, Dwarf, Lizard Man, Guild Girl, the Spear guy, I can never remember his name, the Witch. Like, lots of good characters surround him. They all have their own little stuff. This is a harem kind of story, though, so if you're not into that, I'll just warn you there. If you don't want to read the manga, you can always watch the anime, or if you are a book person, there's a light novel, which is very farther ahead of the manga, unfortunately. Which, that's the only complaint I have about Goblin Slayer, is it leaves me like, oh, come on, I want more, I want to see what happens next. And there's so much still ahead that it hasn't gotten to yet. So I have to wait, like with most mangas. But yeah, those were just that's about everything I can think of, actually. If Have you heard of Goblin Slayer? If so, let me know your thoughts on it. If not, well, I hope you at least consider looking it up and researching it and seeing if you liked it. And I think that's about all I can do with this. There's not much else. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And remember, the game was rigged from the start.